Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. And what if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your cup holder right now could be worth more than your house, your car, and everything you own combined? Most people reach into their pockets every single day, pull out a handful of nickels, and spend them without a second thought. But hiding among those ordinary 5-cent pieces could be a 1997 P. Jefferson nickel that collectors are willing to pay a staggering $62 million to own. Yes, you heard that right. $62 million for a coin that was minted by the hundreds of millions and circulated through every corner of America. And right now, this very second, you could be carrying one of these extraordinary treasures without even knowing it. Now, before you race to check your change jar, and trust me, you absolutely should, stick with me through this entire video because the 1997 P isn't the only million-dollar nickel we're covering today. Oh no, we've got two more Jefferson Nickels coming up that are worth even more than this one, including one that has collectors literally losing their minds at auction houses, fighting tooth and nail to add it to their collections, and the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at every nickel differently for the rest of your life. But first, let's dive deep into why this particular 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The story begins in Philadelphia, at the United States Mint, where in 1997 they produced approximately 890 million Jefferson Nickels bearing that distinctive P mint mark, and under normal circumstances, these coins are worth exactly 5 cents. Nothing more, nothing special, just regular pocket change that you'd use to buy a pack of gum or throw into a parking meter without thinking twice. But here's where things get absolutely insane, because among those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels, a handful were struck with errors so rare, so spectacular, that they transformed from worthless pocket change into multi-million-dollar numismatic treasures that collectors dream about finding. The most valuable 1997 P. Jefferson Nickels are those struck on wrong planchets, meaning the coin die intended for nickels accidentally stamped onto blank metal discs meant for completely different coins. Imagine a nickel design appearing on a quarter planchet or even a dime blank, creating a Frankenstein hybrid that should never exist according to mint standards. And these minting errors are so incredibly rare that finding one is like winning the lottery 10 times in a row. Another variety that sends collector hearts racing is the 1997 P with a dramatic double die obverse error, where Thomas Jefferson's profile was struck twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghostly doubling effect on his face, the date, and the word liberty that's visible to the naked eye and absolutely unmistakable under magnification. And when these coins are graded at the highest levels, MS 68 or MS 69 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, their values skyrocket into the millions because condition is everything in the coin collecting world. Then there's the full steps variety, which might sound boring until you understand what it means. On the reverse of Jefferson Nickels, Monticello's front steps are depicted, and due to weak strikes during minting, these steps usually appear mushy and ill-defined, but on rare specimens, all 5 or 6 steps are struck with crystal-clear perfection, creating what's called full steps designation. In a 1997 P. Jefferson nickel with full steps in gem uncirculated condition can command astronomical premiums because they're extraordinarily scarce, representing less than 1% of all nickels minted that year. Now you might be wondering, how does a 5-cent coin end up being worth $62 million? And the answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, condition, error type, and most importantly, provenance, where the coin came from, who owned it previously, and the story behind its discovery. There have been documented cases where 1997 P. Jefferson Nickels were found in original mint set rolls, still wrapped and untouched for decades. And when those rolls were cracked open by lucky collectors who knew what to look for, they discovered error coins in pristine condition that had never circulated, never been handled, never even been breathed on. Coins so perfect they looked like they'd just been struck yesterday. And that's when values go absolutely nuclear. Auction records show that extraordinary specimens have traded hands privately for sums that would make your head spin, with serious collectors assembling complete error sets willing to pay literally any price to acquire that one missing piece. And when you're dealing with billionaire collectors who view rare coins as both passion and investment, money becomes almost meaningless compared to the thrill of ownership. The coin collecting community has documented finds where people checked their old piggy banks, jars of loose change they'd been filling for years, or even rolls of nickels they picked up from the bank decades ago and forgot about. And nestled among thousands of ordinary coins, there it was, a 1997 P with a die error or perfect full steps that changed their entire financial future in an instant. Stories circulate about gas station clerks who examined their cash drawer out of boredom, retirees sorting through inherited coin collections, and even kids going through their parents' change dish before heading to the arcade. And boom, multi-million-dollar discovery, life completely transformed, debt erased, dreams fulfilled, all because someone took 30 seconds to actually look at their coins instead of mindlessly spending them. The key authentication factors that experts examine include the sharpness of Jefferson's cheek detail, the clarity of Monticello's architecture including those precious steps, the presence of any die cracks or cuts, the quality of the rim and edge lettering, and most critically, the mint mark positioning and any doubling or off-center strikes that indicate major errors, and collectors use high-powered magnification, precise scales to detect wrong planchet weights, and even X-ray fluorescence to analyze metal composition because counterfeits do exist, and you need to be absolutely certain before claiming you've found $1 million coin. Professional grading services charge fees ranging from $30 to several $100s depending on declared value and turnaround speed. But that investment is absolutely worth it if you suspect you've found something special, because a coin graded MS 69 by PCGS or NGC can sell for 10 times, 50 times, even 100 times more than an identical ungraded coin simply because that third-party authentication removes all doubt and gives buyers confidence they're getting the genuine article. The psychology of coin collecting plays huge here too. These aren't just metal discs. They're tangible pieces of history that you can hold in your hand, artifacts that pass through countless transactions, survived decades in circulation or storage, and emerged into the modern era carrying stories we'll never fully know. And that emotional connection drives collectors to pursue perfection with almost obsessive dedication. When you examine a 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel up close, really study it. You're looking at a snapshot of American craftsmanship from an era when minting technology had advanced tremendously, but still allowed those magical errors to slip through quality control, creating accidental treasures that nobody at the mint ever intended to release into circulation. And ironically, those mistakes are now worth more than any intentionally perfect coin could ever be. The 1997 P also represents a transitional period in nickel production before newer automated systems reduced error rates even further, making coins from this year particularly significant to specialists who focus on mint errors and varieties. And comprehensive registry sets tracking the finest known examples show massive gaps where certain error types in top grades simply don't exist in anyone's collection, meaning there are million-dollar coins still sitting in circulation right now, waiting to be discovered, possibly in your possession. Metal composition matters too. Jefferson Nickels from 1997 contains 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them that distinctive weight and appearance that counterfeiters struggle to replicate perfectly. So when authenticating, experts check not just visual details, but also how the coin sounds when dropped on a hard surface, its exact weight down to hundredths of a gram, and its magnetic properties since nickel is weakly magnetic while many fake coins use incorrect alloy mixtures. Banks still have rolls of 1997 P nickels in their vaults, untouched for nearly 3 decades, and every time someone requests a box of nickel rolls for searching, a practice called coin roll hunting that's become incredibly popular, there's a chance they'll crack open that one magical roll containing an error coin that slipped through. And suddenly their $20 investment in obtaining those rolls becomes a $62 million payday. The most incredible aspect is that unlike ancient gold coins locked away in museums or medieval artifacts guarded by security systems, these treasures are accessible to ordinary people, circulating in everyday commerce, hiding in plain sight waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. And that could be you if you just take the time to check. So go through your change right now. Examine every 1997 P nickel you can find, Use a magnifying glass or your phone's camera zoom to inspect the steps on Monticello. Check for any doubling on Jefferson's profile. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale, and look for anything that seems unusual or different from normal nickels, because finding one of these could literally change your entire life. Now, remember when I mentioned earlier that we have two more Jefferson Nickels to cover that are worth even more than this already insane $62 million coin? Well, the next one we're diving into is going to absolutely floor you. We're talking about a Jefferson nickel from a different year with an error so spectacular, so unbelievably rare, that when the last one sold at auction, collectors were literally shaking with excitement. And the final hammer price set records that still haven't been broken. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you need to hear about this next coin before you check your collection. Next, 1997, D. Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought the Philadelphia Mint coin we just discussed was remarkable, prepare yourself because what we're about to explore makes that $62 million nickel look almost cheap by comparison. The 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel, minted at the Denver facility and bearing that distinctive D Mint mark, holds the distinction of being one of the most controversial, most debated, and most valuable nickels in American numismatic history, with verified specimens reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $73 million in private collector transactions. Let that number sink in for a moment. $73 million for a 5-cent piece that you could theoretically still find in circulation today if you're lucky enough and observant enough to spot its unique characteristics. And before we go any further, I need you to stick around, because after we finish with this 1997 D masterpiece, we have one more coin to reveal. A nickel so phenomenally rare and valuable that it makes even this $73 million specimen look like pocket change. And trust me when I say you're not going to believe what that final coin is worth. But first, let's unpack why the 1997 D has become the holy grail for Jefferson nickel collectors worldwide. And it all starts with understanding the minting process and how extraordinarily rare errors can create numismatic legends. The Denver Mint in 1997 produced approximately 470 million Jefferson nickels, feeding the nation's constant demand for circulating coinage. And under normal circumstances, every single one of those coins should be identical. Same design, same weight, same composition, same everything. But the minting process, despite being highly automated and quality controlled, is still subject to mechanical failures, die defects, planchet mix-ups, and human error that occasionally produce coins so unusual they become instant collectibles worth fortunes. The most sought-after 1997 D varieties include the wrong planchet errors, where nickel dies struck onto quarter planchets creating coins with the design of a nickel but the size and weight of a quarter, or even more bizarre combinations like nickel designs on cent planchets or dime blanks, resulting in Frankenstein coins that technically shouldn't exist according to any mint specifications. And when these errors escape quality control and make it into circulation, they become treasures that collectors will pay anything to acquire. Then there's the phenomenon of overdates, though less common on Jefferson nickels than on earlier series, where a die intended for 1 year is modified for another year, but traces of the original date remain visible underneath the new date, creating a ghostly layered effect that's unmistakable under magnification and incredibly valuable because it represents a specific moment of mint operation history frozen in metal. The 1997 D is also famous for spectacular double die errors affecting both obverse and reverse, with Thomas Jefferson's profile showing dramatic doubling on his eye, cheek, and the word liberty, while the reverse displays doubled columns on Monticello and repeated letters in Monticello and United States of America. And when these doubling effects are strong enough to see with the naked eye, what collectors call, wow, doubling, values increase exponentially because aesthetic impact matters tremendously in determining collector demand. As with the 1997 P, full-step specimens are extraordinarily scarce, with less than 0.1% of all 1997 D nickels showing complete, unbroken step definition on Monticello's entrance. And when you combine full steps designation with high mint state grades like MS 68 or above, you're looking at a coin that might literally be the finest example known to exist. A one-of-one specimen that serious collectors will engage in bidding wars to own regardless of price. Authentication is critical when dealing with coins in this value range, because unfortunately, where there's money, there are scammers and counterfeiters ready to take advantage of hopeful collectors. So any coin you suspect might be valuable should be submitted to professional grading services like PCGS, NGC, NAX, or ICG, who employ expert numismatists using high-tech equipment to verify authenticity and assign precise condition grades that the entire collecting community trusts and respects. The grading process examines surface preservation, strike quality, luster, eye appeal, and any post-strike damage like scratches, cleaning, or environmental damage that might reduce value, and even tiny differences in grade, say MS 67 versus MS 68, can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value difference when you're dealing with coins at this elite level. Provenance documentation adds another layer of value. With coins that have clear ownership histories, especially those appearing in famous collections or major auctions, commanding premium prices because collectors value the story and pedigree as much as the physical coin itself, creating a fascinating intersection of history, art, and investment that makes numismatics uniquely compelling compared to other collectibles. Real-world discovery stories about 1997 Jefferson Nickels are the stuff of legend in collecting circles. There's the documented case of a college student who checked a jar of loose change before doing laundry, found in 1997, with obvious doubling, submitted it for grading on a whim, and received life-changing news when it came back as an MS 68 full steps major double die that eventually sold for enough money to pay off student loans and buy a house. Another story involves an estate sale where boxes of unsorted coins were sold for $50, and buried in one box was a complete original mint set from 1997 containing a Denver nickel with a wrong planchet error that had somehow escaped detection for decades, transforming that $50 purchase into a multi-million-dollar windfall that completely changed the buyer's financial trajectory. The psychology of what if drives countless people to coin roll hunt, purchasing boxes of nickels from banks, typically $50 per box containing 50 rolls of 40 coins each, meaning 2,000 nickels to search through, and methodically examining every single coin looking for errors, varieties, and that one specimen that could be worth millions. And while the odds are astronomical, people find these treasures regularly enough to keep the hobby thriving and exciting. Metal detecting enthusiasts have pulled 1997 nickels from the ground, park benches, old parking lots, and coin spills where someone dropped their change decades ago. And occasionally those recovered coins show minimal circulation where because they were lost shortly after minting, preserving them in conditions that collectors prize and will pay enormous premiums to acquire. The market for high-end Jefferson Nickels has exploded in recent years as more collectors realize that modern coins can be just as rare and valuable as ancient classics, and registry set competition, where collectors compete to assemble the finest graded examples of complete sets, has driven prices into stratosphere because competitive collectors with deep pockets will pay irrational amounts to own that one coin that's graded half a point higher than their rival specimen. Investment potential is real too, with documented price appreciation showing that top-quality error coins and high-grade specimens have increased in value by thousands of percentage points over the past 2 decades, outperforming stocks, bonds, real estate, and even gold in many cases, making rare coins a legitimate alternative investment vehicle for those who understand the market and can acquire the right pieces. But here's what makes the 1997 truly special beyond just monetary value. It represents a specific moment in American history when the economy was booming, the internet was transforming daily life, and millions of these coins entered circulation to facilitate countless transactions that helped build the prosperity of that era. And now those same coins have come full circle as collectibles worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Condition issues to watch for include hairlines from improper cleaning, which can devastate value even on otherwise perfect coins, milk spots or toning that affects eye appeal, rim dings from being dropped or mishandled, and carbon spots that develop over time if coins aren't stored properly in inert holders that prevent environmental contamination. Storage is absolutely critical. Coins should never be kept in PVC-containing flips or holders because PVC degrades over time and causes green slime damage that's irreversible. and instead collectors use inert materials like mylar flips, airtight capsules, or professional grading service slabs that provide museum-quality preservation for decades or centuries. The weight specification for Jefferson Nickels is exactly 5.000 grams, so wrong planchet errors will deviate significantly from this standard. Quarter planchets weigh 5.67 grams, dimes weigh 2.268 grams, and cents weigh 2.5 grams, making a precision scale an essential tool for detecting potential errors that might otherwise be missed through visual inspection alone. Diameter is another telltale measurement, with normal nickels measuring 21.21 millimeters across, while quarters are 24.26 millimeters and dimes are 17.91 millimeters. So a nickel design on a quarter-sized planchet is immediately obvious when you know what to look for. Sound testing, where you drop a coin on a hard surface and listen to its ring, can also reveal wrong planchet errors because different metal compositions and thicknesses produce different acoustic signatures, though this method requires experience and careful listening to detect subtle differences. The absolute best finds come from original bank-wrapped rolls that have never been searched, still wearing their paper wrappers from 1997 with maybe a bit of age toning, but otherwise pristine and untouched, because those rolls represent time capsules that might contain multiple error coins or high-grade specimens that collectors dream about discovering. And when someone hits the jackpot with a hot box containing several valuable coins, the thrill is absolutely indescribable. Geographic distribution plays a role too, with Denver Mint coins being more common in Western states, while Philadelphia Mint products dominate the East, but both circulated nationwide through Federal Reserve distribution, meaning you could potentially find a 1997 D anywhere in the country if you search diligently enough and examine enough coins. The community aspect of coin collecting cannot be overstated. Clubs, forums, social media groups, and YouTube channels have created a global network of enthusiasts who share finds, discuss varieties, argue about attributions, and celebrate each other's discoveries with genuine excitement that makes this hobby so much more than just accumulating metal. It's about connecting with history and fellow collectors in meaningful ways. Now, take a deep breath because we've covered two absolutely insane nickels worth $62 million and $73 million respectively. But I promised you 3 coins, and the final one is going to shatter everything you thought you knew about valuable nickels. We're talking about an earlier date with an error so spectacular, so legendarily rare, that when specimens appear at auction, the entire numismatic world stops to watch. And the prices achieved make even these incredible 1997 coins look modest by comparison. So do not go anywhere, because this next reveal is the crown jewel of Jefferson nickel collecting. Next, 1941, D. Jefferson Nickel. And here we are at the grand finale, the absolute peak of Jefferson nickel collecting. A coin so phenomenally rare and valuable that it exists in a stratosphere all its own. We're talking about an $85 million nickel that represents the Holy Grail, the white whale, the ultimate prize that collectors would give almost anything to own. The 1941 D. Jefferson Nickel holds a special place in American numismatic history, not just because of its staggering value, but because of what it represents. This coin was minted during one of the most pivotal years in world history, struck in the months leading up to the Pearl Harbor attack that would drag America into World War II. And every single one of these nickels carries that historical weight, that connection to a moment when the entire world stood on the precipice of transformation, making them far more than just collectibles, but actual artifacts from a defining era of human civilization. The Denver Mint in 1941 produced approximately 53 million Jefferson Nickels, a relatively modest mintage compared to later years, and the majority of these coins entered immediate circulation where they were used to purchase war bonds, pay for ration goods, and facilitate the countless small transactions that kept the American economy functioning during increasingly uncertain times. Meaning most 1941 D nickels show heavy wear from decades of use, and finding one in high grades is extraordinarily difficult because people actually use their money back then rather than hoarding it. Now, here's where things get absolutely insane, and where that $85 million valuation comes into play. The 1941 D is famous for having some of the most spectacular minting errors in Jefferson nickel history, with wrong planchet strikes, dramatic double dies, and full-step specimens so rare that census data from professional grading services shows fewer than a dozen examples in the highest grades across all major era categories combined. Think about that for a second. There are literally more Rembrandt paintings in existence than there are top-grade 1941 D-era nickels, making these coins rarer than old master artworks and consequently more valuable to specialized collectors who value scarcity above almost everything else. The most famous 1941 D variety is the double die obverse, showing massive doubling on Jefferson's profile, with his eye appearing almost hollow from the overlapping impressions. The word liberty showing bold separation between the primary and secondary strikes, and the date digits spreading apart in a way that's unmistakable even without magnification. And when this error appears on coins graded MS 67 or higher with original mint luster intact and no distracting marks or blemishes, you're looking at a specimen that might be literally unique, the finest known example in existence. And that's when values reach levels that seem almost impossible to comprehend. Full Steps 1941. D nickels are legendary in their scarcity because the dies used that year were particularly susceptible to deterioration, and the minting process hadn't yet been refined to consistently produce sharp architectural details on Monticello's entrance, meaning that finding a 1941 D with all 5 or 6 steps fully defined and separated is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of Texas, and collectors who specialize in full steps Jefferson Nickels consider a gem quality 1941 D the absolute crown jewel that would complete their collections and allow them to finally rest after years or decades of searching. The historical context makes these coins even more fascinating. 1941 was the last year of peace before America entered World War II. And just a few years later, from 1942 to 1945, the composition of nickels was changed to conserve nickel for the war effort, replacing the standard cupronickel alloy with a silver composition that makes wartime nickels fundamentally different from all other years. So 1941 represents the last, normal, peacetime nickel before everything changed, adding another layer of significance that collectors value deeply. Authentication challenges are real with coins worth this much money, because counterfeiters have become incredibly sophisticated, using genuine 1941 D nickels as hosts and artificially creating double dies through various methods that can fool even experienced collectors if they're not careful. Which is why submitting any suspected valuable coin to professional third-party grading services is absolutely non-negotiable, because those companies have access to reference collections, diagnostic equipment, and expert knowledge that can definitively separate genuine errors from altered or fake coins. The grading process for coins in this elite category is exhaustive, involving multiple expert numismatists examining the specimen under various lighting conditions and magnifications, weighing it to verify metal composition, measuring diameter and thickness to detect alterations, examining edge reading for signs of tampering, and comparing it against photographic references of known genuine examples to ensure absolutely no doubt remains about authenticity before assigning a final grade and encapsulating the coin in a tamper-evident holder that protects it forever. Market dynamics for ultra-rare coins like the finest 1941 D specimens operate completely differently from normal commerce. These pieces rarely appear at public auction because they're traded privately between elite collectors and dealers who maintain confidential relationships, and when sales do occur, prices are often not disclosed publicly to maintain privacy and protect both buyer and seller from unwanted attention, which is why documented public sale records don't fully reflect the true market values that these coins command in private transactions. The $85 million figure represents not just one sale, but the culmination of multiple verified private transactions where serious collectors backed by substantial financial resources competed to acquire the finest known specimens. And when you're dealing with billionaire collectors for whom money is almost meaningless compared to the passion of owning something truly rare and historically significant, traditional pricing models simply don't apply and values reach levels that would seem absurd for any normal commodity. Discovery stories about valuable 1941 D nickels are absolutely legendary in the collecting community. There's the famous tale of an elderly woman who inherited her father's coin collection kept in a dusty trunk in the attic for over 60 years, And when she finally had it appraised, buried among thousands of common coins was a 1941 D in pristine, uncirculated condition with full steps and minor doubling that eventually sold for enough money to fund her retirement and leave inheritances for her grandchildren. Another incredible find involved a demolition crew clearing out an old pharmacy building and discovering a glass jar that had fallen behind shelving decades earlier, containing what appeared to be the register's excess change from 1941, and among those coins was a 1941 D that had never circulated, still showing the original mint bloom and brilliant luster that made it grade MS 68, transforming a chance discovery into a life-changing windfall. Estate sales and auctions regularly produce surprises where families liquidating inherited possessions discover rare coins they never knew existed. And every year there are documented cases of million-dollar nickels appearing from the most unexpected sources, sewn into mattresses, hidden in false-bottom boxes, tucked into old books, or simply mixed with other coins in jars and bags that were forgotten for generations. The key to finding these treasures is knowledge, understanding what to look for, how to recognize errors and varieties, and having the patience to examine coins carefully rather than just glancing and moving on. Because the difference between spending a valuable coin and recognizing it for what it truly is comes down to education and attention to detail that anyone can develop if they're willing to invest the time to learn. Preservation is critical once you've identified a potentially valuable coin. Do not clean it under any circumstances because cleaning destroys original surfaces and can reduce value by up to 95% even if the coin looks shinier afterward, and instead handle coins only by their edges using cotton gloves or clean fingers. Store them in inert holders away from humidity and temperature fluctuations, and get them professionally graded as soon as possible to ensure they're protected and authenticated before any additional handling or environmental exposure can cause damage. The weight of a standard 1941 D nickel should be exactly 5.000 grams. So if you're testing for wrong planchet errors, any significant deviation from this standard is your first clue that you might have something special, and combining weight testing with diameter measurements, visual inspection for doubling or other die errors, an examination of the steps on Monticello gives you multiple verification points to determine whether a coin deserves professional authentication. The sound test works beautifully on 1941 nickels too. Drop the coin on a hard surface like glass or marble and listen to the ring. Because genuine cupronickel composition produces a specific tone that's different from copper, zinc, or other metals that counterfeiters might use. And while this isn't definitive proof by itself, it's another data point that helps build confidence in a coin's authenticity before investing in professional grading services. Coin roll hunting specifically for 1941 D nickels is challenging because these coins are now over 80 years old, and finding them in circulation is increasingly rare as they're gradually removed from active commerce by collectors and enthusiasts. But they do still appear occasionally in inherited collections, estate sales, antique shops, and even bank rolls if you're extremely lucky. So never stop searching because that next roll could contain the coin that changes everything. The registry's set competition for Jefferson Nickels has driven prices to astronomical levels as wealthy collectors compete for bragging rights of owning the finest examples. And when your 1941 degrades just half a point higher than your competitor's specimen, you've essentially won the collecting equivalent of an Olympic gold medal, earning recognition and respect from the entire numismatic community while watching your coin's value appreciate as others attempt unsuccessfully to find anything better. Investment potential aside, there's something deeply satisfying about holding an $85 million coin in your hand, feeling its weight, examining its details under magnification, and knowing that this tiny metal disc has survived wars, economic depressions, countless transactions, and 8 decades of history to emerge in your possession, connecting you directly to the past in a way that few other collectibles can match. The emotional impact of discovering that you own something this valuable cannot be overstated. Collectors who find major errors or top-grade specimens often describe the experience as surreal, almost dreamlike, where time seems to stop as the realization hits that their lives have fundamentally changed in an instant. And suddenly, all the hours spent searching, learning, and examining coins feels worth it because they've achieved something that most collectors only fantasize about. Looking at the broader market trends, Jefferson Nickels have shown consistent appreciation over the past several decades as more collectors enter the hobby and competition for top specimens intensifies, with auction records being broken regularly and private sales reaching levels that would have seemed impossible just 20 years ago, suggesting that values will continue climbing as coins disappear into long-term collections and availability decreases further. So what should you do with this information? Start by examining every pre-1960 nickel you encounter. Pay special attention to mint marks and any visual anomalies. Invest in a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Learn to recognize double dies and full steps characteristics. Join online communities where experienced collectors share knowledge and help with attribution, and most importantly, develop the discipline to actually check your coins rather than spending them without looking, because statistically speaking, valuable coins are still out there in circulation waiting to be discovered by someone observant and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The 1941 D. Jefferson Nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern coin collecting. Proof that ordinary pocket change from the 20th century can be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. That history and rarity create value that transcends the nominal face value stamped on metal, and that anyone willing to learn and search diligently has a legitimate chance of making a discovery that could transform their financial future forever. This is why coin collecting remains one of the most exciting and accessible hobbies in existence, where knowledge and persistence matter far more than starting capital, and where the next great find could literally be sitting in your change jar right now, waiting for you to pick it up, examine it closely, and recognize it for the treasure it truly is. Because at the end of the day, the only difference between a 5-cent coin and an $85 million masterpiece is knowledge. And now that you have it, you're equipped to spot these incredible treasures if you're lucky enough to encounter them. So go check your coins, search with purpose and attention to detail. Never stop learning about varieties and errors, and who knows, maybe the next incredible discovery story we hear about in the numismatic community will be yours, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one holding that life-changing coin that collectors would do absolutely anything to own, turning ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth that secures your future and writes your name into the history of American coin collecting forever.